after fresh reports about a purported blow-up between Yandy Smith and Kirk Frost began to circulate. The internet was ablaze with rumors, side-eyes, and purported behind-the-scenes chaos. Let me tell you, if even half of what people are saying is true, this situation is far more complicated than anyone anticipated. According to the talk flowing around fan pages and gossip circles, Yandy apparently had an angry reaction after hearing about Kirk's latest round of charges. And what makes it even weirder is that some sources claim the whole thing almost erupted into a near-physical battle. Once more, they are not verified facts. They are merely rumors. But you know how love and hip-hop drama is? The streets always talk before the cameras do. Fans are already calling this one of the most unexpected shifts in recent memory. According to some who claim to have insider tea, Yandy's emotions went crazy the instant she faced Kirk. She apparently raised her voice, demanded explanations, and insisted that she was tired of seeing people manipulate each other's reputations. According to several online witnesses, the atmosphere in the room was so tense that you could feel the floor shake, and everyone in the vicinity froze in place, unsure of whether to intervene or let the two heavyweights fight it out. But the wildest part, allegedly, this wasn't simply a simple back and forth. According to reports, the dispute intensified more quickly than anybody had anticipated, leading to accusations, hurtful remarks, and a degree of intensity that required multiple people to step in to defuse the situation. The cast hasn't verified any of this, but the internet speculation hasn't stopped. People are already speculating about ruined friendships, fractured alliances, and what this implies for the entire circle moving ahead. Something significant is developing if these rumors are even remotely accurate, and the consequences might upend everything in their immediate vicinity. Ever since these internet whispers started spreading about Yandy supposedly losing her cool after hearing Kirk's latest round of claims, social media has been spinning like a whirlwind caught in a tiny room. People frequently comment on how this entire situation felt different, as if there was an accumulation of feelings that had been suppressed for a while and were just waiting to surface at the appropriate time. And now that these unverified claims are coming to light, there's an odd tension in the air where everyone senses something is wrong, but nobody really knows what's true. The blogs flying about indicate that as soon as Yandy heard the remarks attributed to Kirk J., her entire demeanor transformed like a storm rolling in without warning. The aspect that truly startled folks online is the way they describe her tone. People say she wasn't shouting for attention or reacting out of nowhere. Instead, it was the kind of voice someone uses when they feel cornered or mistreated, the kind of tone that screams they're done holding back. Some users online even remarked that Kirk looked caught off guard, as if he didn't expect her to reply with that level of emotion. These spreading tailies said that the energy was so intense that even people standing close by felt as though the floor had turned to glass. Naturally, unreliable rumors, sporadic posts, and persons claiming to have seen or heard something are the sources of all of this. Nobody from the actual circle has confirmed any of this. However, this doesn't stop fans from responding, as they always do. Anytime something major hits the internet, people don't wait for official statements. They react with emotion first and reasoning afterward. Some of them claim that they have never seen Yandy in such a heated situation, and that fact alone leads them to conclude that she must have been prompted by something significant. The nature of the claims associated with Kirk is what intensifies all of this. Other readers believe he made a statement that hit a chord, something that touched a sensitive area Yandy doesn't like being dragged into. Those who are promoting this story claim that her entire demeanor altered as soon as she absorbed his purported remarks. Anyone who has ever been under strain will recognize the tightening of her face and the straightening of her posture. It's the sight of someone who feels like they're being forced into defending themselves before they're ready. Kirk's tone is described by others on the internet as being a bit too informal and dismissive, which, if accurate, may easily aggravate. Someone who is already feeling attacked say that when he tried to explain himself, his voice didn't fit the severity of what was being discussed. And when someone feels their concerns are being brushed off, the irritation builds thick, enough to cut with a knife. This is what some fans think led Yandy to approach him head-on, making it obvious she wasn't going to sit quietly while her identity or her intentions were questioned. Several posters even discuss Yandy's body language, claiming that she moved forward with the confidence that comes from being frustrated rather than in an aggressive manner. Kirk, on the other hand, is said to have taken a small step back, as if he was attempting to prevent things from going worse. People adore analyzing minor things like these, even when there's no proof. They describe how voices became crisper, how the air changed, and how each second seemed heavier than the last. According to several, anyone standing off to the side could feel the tension pinching their lungs as the room fell silent between answers. In an attempt to figure out what would have caused such a situation, followers are contributing their own opinions. Many of them remarked that both Yandy and Kirk are seasoned enough to handle arguments without letting things spiral. But if these reports are accurate, then maybe something a lot deeper was simmering under the surface. Something the public hasn't been aware of. That's the kind of notion that keeps people going back to comment sections, searching for more clues, new perspectives, more parts of a puzzle that might not even exist. Another part of the rumor that people keep repeating is how emotionally loaded Yandy looked during this purported encounter. They characterize her as being caught between a need to defend herself and feelings of hurt, rage, and disbelief. Others argue her voice wasn't just loud, it carried this weight that only comes from emotional fatigue, and depending on who you listen to, Kirk appeared bewildered, as if he didn't quite realize how his purported words had landed. The energy surrounding them seemed unstable as a result of their perplexity, which increased the pressure of the situation. Every word got sharper, almost like a sword, in the way some people describe it. Not because harm was intended, but rather because that's what occurs when feelings surge too fast and too strongly. Even the bystanders, according to these accounts, didn't know how to react. Some people reportedly halted because they weren't sure if moving forward would diffuse the situation or unintentionally push it farther into the dangerous area. The silence that apparently fell over the room at one point is being characterized as so heavy that it felt like time paused. Nothing moved. Nobody said. Everyone just waited, unsure of what direction things were going to go. Several of these posts talk about the way Kirk tried to explain himself, but the timing was so bad that his comments didn't land right. Say he wanted to explain, but the tension made everything come out abrupt, creating more confusion. On the other side, Yandy was standing firm, her emotions right at the surface, unwilling to let anything slip. And when two people stand there with two different emotional speeds, the scenario automatically turns volatile. There are also allegations that the room's atmosphere completely shifted to the point where someone entering midway would have felt as though they were walking into a fire without understanding what started it. Some characterize Yandy's position as protective, as though she was defending something much more fundamental to her identity than merely her name. Kirk's posture, according to these circulating depictions, was tense, yet unsure, like he didn't want things escalating but also didn't know how to pull anything. Nobody knows who started posting about this originally. It might have been someone who overheard something out of context, a friend of a friend, or someone attempting to gain influence by drawing attention to themselves. But once a story like this reaches social media, people run with it. Until the initial spark is obscured by layers of dramatic retellings and emotional responses, each person adds their own narrative, detail, and interpretation. Additionally, despite the fact that nothing has been verified, the way this entire purported incident has been reported online gives the impression that it is one of those instances where two strong personalities clash due to pent-up resentment and misinterpreted intentions. It depicts a room full with unsaid emotions, escalating hostilities, and an abrupt surge of tension powerful enough to jolt even the most composed individuals out of their comfort zones. The way individuals online describe what followed after. That heavy quiet is something straight out of a dramatic moment where emotions stop hiding and flood directly onto the surface. Some claim that as soon as the tension broke, Yandy took a slow breath, the kind of breath someone takes when they're trying not to let their voice shake. They say her eyes were set firmly on Kirk, steadfast and persistent, like she wanted him to realize the weight behind every feeling she had been keeping back. One person remarked that the room felt tighter just watching her steady herself, as if everyone knew she was about to speak from a place far deeper than ordinary frustration. According to these circulating tailies, Kirk looked like he wanted to leap in and explain, but his timing kept conflicting with Yandy's intensity. Every time he opened his mouth or made a small movement, the energy changed in a way that further compounded the situation. Those providing these stories stressed that Kirk wasn't attempting to be disrespectful. He just seemed unaware of how to navigate the emotional tempest erupting right in front of him. Additionally, when someone is uncertain, their words sound softer and less certain, which just makes the other person feel as though they are not being understood. They claim that Yandy raised her hand, slightly not in an aggressive manner, but in that gesture people used to say, "Please, let me finish." Kirk paused for a moment, his countenance taut but inquisitive, as if he wanted to hear her out but was unsure of what might happen next. This silence was defined by the onlookers as a delicate moment where all hinges on the person's choice of following sentence. Then, according to the accounts circulating on the internet, Yandy began speaking in a soothing yet acerbic tone. People claim she reminded Kirk of the respect she had always showed him, the occasions she stuck by him publicly, the instances she believed in justice even when others disputed it. They claimed that she was speaking with a clarity that cuts deeper than shouting could, rather than yelling. It was that tone of disappointment combined with hurt, the kind that makes everyone in the room realize something personal has been touched. Internet sources indicate Kirk shifted his weight, as the words were hitting harder than he intended. Some articles describe the look on his face as bewildered, a little bothered, but also realizing that maybe this wasn't simply another disagreement. When he eventually answered, his voice was characterized as low and erratic, as if he sought to diffuse the tension but was unaware of the emotional harm that had already been done. He apparently tried to inform her that the charges being spread were exaggerated, misconstrued, or taken out of context. Yet at this point, the tension was so thick that even honest attempts at clarity felt like sparks instead of solutions. Some users even assert that Yandy moved slightly forward when Kirk attempted to explain his position. This was not a violent gesture, but rather the intensity of someone who required straightforward answers rather than gentle ones. They describe her as someone who wasn't searching for consolation or watered-down words. She was asking for acknowledgement. Even when feelings are strong, acknowledging someone is frequently the most difficult thing to do. Those lending fuel to this online supposition insist that Kirk's reactions didn't match the emotional depth of Yandy's statements. Even if he meant well, his cool, almost detached tone rubbed her the wrong way. Some say she felt like he was minimizing the importance of what she believed was being intimated about her. This mismatch in emotional speed converted the room into a pressure chamber, with every statement carrying greater intensity than the last. One individual remarked that Kirk raised his hands slightly, palms forward, like he was trying to symbolize peace. Yet the way they describe it, the gesture didn't land the way he wanted. Instead, it came off like he was defending himself from an attack rather than addressing the core issue. Sometimes, when someone feels unheard, a tiny gesture like that can make them feel much more unseen. Online, storytellers claim Yandy took another breath, but this one was heavier, almost disappointed. She apparently told him that she wasn't going to fight him. She was against the thought of her name being dragged into unnecessary turmoil. Others describe her voice as unsteady but strong, like she was struggling to retain control while her emotions threatened to come through. Inherent vulnerability, according to supporters, is what made this purported moment so passionate and raw. The rumor continues, saying Kirk's demeanor softened slightly, as if he finally realized the weight of what she was communicating. However, the emotional gap between them felt great, even at that precise moment. Some claim that he attempted to physically close the distance between them by taking a step closer in the hopes of reducing the tension. However, the step seemed uncomfortable rather than reassuring, and the energy was still too heavy. Online, reports claimed that someone in the vicinity shifted uneasily, as if they believed that things would spin out of control once more. They compared the atmosphere to a flame that is too close to dry paper, describing it as unstable. But instead of blowing up, something else happened. People claim that Yandy briefly averted her gaze, as though she needed a moment to gather herself. She didn't walk away, but she gave herself a little pause, grounding her emotions. Rumor has it that Kirk was taken aback by this slight movement of the head. Some report he seemed remorseful for a second, the kind of shame someone feels when they suddenly see how their remarks, even if inadvertent, carried impact. He attempted again to speak, this time softer, slower, picking his words more carefully. But the room was so silent that even his gentlest tone felt loud. Internet posts suggest the emotional gulf between them wasn't from rage alone. It stemmed from years of history, common ties, and all the unstated expectations that come with being in the same convoluted circle. Some claim that Yandy's emotional response went beyond a single remark. It was about the burden of all she had been suppressing, everything she had put up with, and everything she had attempted to overcome. And Kirk wasn't simply protecting himself. He was trying to reestablish balance in a moment that had fallen out of his grasp, when Yandy eventually turned to face him. According to some witnesses, her voice briefly broke. Not sobbing, just overwhelmed. The kind of fracture that exposes a severe emotional wound. They claim Kirk blinked hard, like the sound impacted him in the chest. Even the passersby allegedly looked away for a bit, as if they felt like they were intruding on something too personal, too sensitive. What makes this claimed event so intense for fans is how complex it sounds. Internet storytellers keep arguing that it wasn't anger versus anger. It was sorrow versus perplexity, emotion versus misunderstanding, and dignity versus inadvertent disrespect. The way individuals describe what happened after that raw moment online gives the impression that the room as a whole changed into a different emotional frequency. Individuals swear the air in that room seemed like it was holding its breath. Some say that once Yandy's voice broke, a wave of quiet swept over the room, making it feel even heavier than before, almost as if the air got thicker and warmer. They claimed that Kirk stood totally still, unsure of whether to speak or to give her room. His posture had changed from guarded to timid, almost vulnerable in its own perplexed way. He seemed like someone walking across thin ice, hesitant to take another step in case it made everything worse. Rumors online say Yandy touched her cheek lightly, not because tears were falling, but because emotions were resting too near to the surface. She wasn't attempting to win an argument, according to others who insisted. She was struggling to pull herself together. That tiny gesture made the situation seem more genuine, human, and complex than any straightforward argument could possibly be. Other followers claimed they felt a peculiar agony reading the descriptions, as if they could feel the frustration she was holding. According to other accounts, Kirk finally breathed, a long, slow breath that seemed like it had been imprisoned inside him since the confrontation began. He attempted to clarify once more, but this time his tone had become enough gentle to sound genuine. Many describe him as responding with a tone that suggested he didn't want to quarrel, that he wasn't attempting to belittle her sentiments, and that he genuinely didn't anticipate things to hit this emotional level. But honesty might land the wrong way when someone is already grieving. Some claimed that Yandy listened, but her eyes had a detached expression, as if she was listening to what he was saying but was also absorbing something more profound. Those speculating online agree that Kirk's answer wasn't theatrical or defensive. It was straightforward, almost too easy for a situation that had grown this emotional. He apparently made a comment regarding miscommunication, misinterpretation, or the way people fabricate stories, even though such might have been the case. The issue was that the harm had already been done. The words that follow seem insignificant once feelings have risen to a certain level. The detail people keep repeating is how Yandy took a slow step back, not out of terror, but to allow herself space to breathe. It was a reset rather than a retreat. Whitnor said she grounded herself by briefly putting her hand close to her chest as if to remind herself to remain composed. Fans claimed that this small gesture said more than words. Zed indicated that she wasn't attempting to exacerbate anything. She was trying to preserve her composure, Andrew, noticing this, purportedly took a half step forward, but then stopped abruptly, as if realizing that coming closer may give the wrong message. That reluctance made the entire scenario much more dramatic, because it underlined how unsure he was of how to remedy the situation. According to several posts, he gave the floor a quick glance, the kind of look someone takes when they realize they've unintentionally crossed a line. One tweet that went viral claimed that someone nearby whispered for the rest in the room to stay calm, as if even a small sound might break the emotional equilibrium hanging in the air. They say nobody wanted to move, nobody wanted to speak, because the two of them were standing in the center of something heavy, something years in the making, something too personal for outsiders to tamper with. Others recount how Yandy eventually spoke again, her tone low and calm, shorn of the earlier edge. She supposedly mentioned the importance of words and the harm that thoughtless presumptions may do to someone's tranquility. The way they tell it, her voice didn't soar. It softened, which somehow made the words hit even harder. Everyone understands that a subtle truth wounds deeper than a harsh allegation. And that's exactly how some claim this moment felt. As he listened, Kirk's shoulders fell slightly, as though he was suddenly overcome by the weariness of the entire exchange. He didn't interrupt, didn't defend, didn't modify his tone. He merely absorbed what she was saying. Even though it wasn't calm, several online commenters claimed that this was the first instance in the entire altercation that both of them appeared to be communicating on the same emotional wavelength. It was honest, and honesty always makes the atmosphere shift. According to rumors, Kirk then attempted to speak once again, but even he was surprised when his voice broke a little. This little crack has been compared to a pin falling in a quiet hallway. It didn't sound theatrical or forced. It sounded honest. Like someone realizing that no matter how tough they act or how calm they attempt to be, feelings hit hard when they're eventually confronted with their impact. This slight gap in his voice purportedly prompted Yandy, look up, her expression transforming from defensive pain to something softer, something closer to recognition. Some fans think that this is when things started to change from conflict to clarity, not resolution, not forgiveness, but clarity. A time where both sides finally recognized the human being standing in front of them, not just the dispute. Andrew explained again, selecting his words more carefully this time, making it obvious he wasn't assaulting her or attempting to pull her into extra drama. He wanted her to understand his side too, but he wasn't pushing anymore. He was offering. The postings say Yandy listened silently, her jaw unclenching, though her eyes still bore the weight of the moment. She refrained from jumping in. She let him talk. And sometimes, letting someone say is the clearest indicator that you're not trying to win. You're trying to understand, even if it hurts. Bystanders allegedly softened as well. The tension in the room began shifting, not going away, but relaxing just enough to allow folks to breathe normally once more. Someone walked slightly to the side. Someone else leaned back, and the air finally seemed like it was moving again instead of sitting still like a trapped fog. Some stories claim that once Kirk finished speaking, a silence settled again. But this one was different from the prior ones. It wasn't sharp or scary, it was exhausted. That was the stillness that follows after emotional truth has been set out on the table. No yelling, no harsh tones, just two people attempting to traverse the murky middle ground between pride, misunderstanding, and personal hurt. Then Yandy, as recounted by innumerable posts, nodded very slowly, nor in consent, nor in acceptance, but in recognition. Acknowledging his words, acknowledging the emotional chaos between them, acknowledging the moment itself. It seemed as though everyone in the room finally felt the emotional waves settle into something more stable after this one nod. Some claim Kirk looked relieved for a second, then almost unsure if he should speak again. According to reports, his visage softened even more, as if he wanted to say the correct thing without upsetting the delicate serenity that had at last materialized. The gathering, according to internet testimonies, held its breath once more, but this time the tension had evolved into something gentler, something less explosive, and more introspective. The atmosphere that people describe in the final moments of this purported event feels like a gradual emotional decline, the kind that leaves a room feeling quietly heavy. According to multiple internet articles, following that subtle change in energy, Yandy let out a small breath she had been holding, the kind of breath someone releases as the weight on their chest starts to lighten just a little. It wasn't complete relief. It was simply the first true moment that the storm inside her started settling into something less turbulent, something she could steady herself against. Those who claim to have witnessed this say that Kirk's eyes followed that breath, as if he realized how much it meant. They describe his demeanor as hesitant, as he was contemplating whether to talk or stay silent. He appeared to grasp the delicacy of the situation, knowing anything too strong, too hasty, or too defensive could disrupt the equilibrium again. Thus, instead of moving forward, he stayed still, allowing her room without stepping fully back. He finally recognized the emotional terrain they were standing on, as evidenced by his modest acknowledgement. According to ongoing rumors, Yandy spoke once more, but this time her voice was much more steady and gentler. She didn't sound angry now. She sounded exhausted, weary of attempting to explain, weary of carrying her emotions, weary of being misread. The words she used, according to these sources, weren't sharp or cutting. They were honest. The type of honesty that comes after the fire is burned down, and all that's left is truth in its most delicate form. She discussed how draining it is to defend your intentions even when you haven't done anything to warrant the charges that are being made against you, and how stressful it is to have your name thrown around indiscriminately. Kirk lowered his head a little, reflectively rather than in embarrassment. He appeared to finally feel the weight of the situation on his own shoulders. According to several, Ikea understood that the emotional impact he had was genuine and significant, regardless of what he meant or didn't mean. His fingers tapped softly against his leg, a small unconscious move individuals often do when they're thinking intently, trying to understand what they missed, what they neglected, what could have been expressed better. Some web sources even mention a moment where Yandy's eyes softened for the first time since the confrontation began. Not totally forgiving, not rejecting what happened, but softening enough to suggest that she wasn't closing down. She was still present, still engaged, eager to discuss instead of fight. Because sometimes, presence is more powerful than agreement. At that point, followers continue to analyze, speculating that it might not have been the tension, but rather how much both parties seemed to care about being understood that made the entire purported experience so dramatic. Bystanders apparently felt the emotional intensity lessened and relaxed their shoulders a little. They didn't jump in, didn't say anything, because the moment belonged to the two people standing at its center. The remainder of the space watched in silence as an emotional storm gradually subsided into a light drizzle. Rumors say that Kirk eventually spoke again after a silent wait, his voice low but more grounded than before. He didn't reiterate himself or attempt to defend anything. Instead, he talked with a slow clarity, recognizing that maybe he didn't entirely comprehend how heavy his words sounded from the outside. He clarified that impact and intention don't always coincide, and that occasionally the largest issues arise from tiny communication gaps that go unnoticed. Individuals who've retold this section of the rumor claim his tone carried an earnestness that hadn't been there earlier. They claimed Yandy listened without interrupting, her countenance attentive but still cautious. She wasn't ready to let her emotions evaporate or pretend everything was all right. She wasn't shutting down though. She was hearing him, considering each word, trying to assess whether the earnestness she heard was true. And that's what made the moment feel so human to people standing within a catastrophe neither intended, attempting to navigate it without losing themselves. According to other accounts, she answered him quietly and honestly, informing him that respect requires not just straightforward communication but also an awareness of the emotional significance of what is being spoken. She apparently informed him that she wasn't just seeking an explanation or an apology. She sought recognition, the acknowledgement of her emotions, her limits, her place in the circle, and the appropriate level of respect. The tone people described wasn't demanding or aggressive. It was simply real. The type of real that makes everything else in the room fade into background noise. Kirk gave a slow nod to indicate that he understood. Perhaps not entirely, perhaps not perfectly, but enough to realize he couldn't ignore the situation or downplay its significance. They claim his voice was nearly a whisper when he stated he didn't plan for things to go this far or hurt her in any way. Whether the comments were true or just part of the rumor spreading, supporters feel the delivery must have been delicate enough to soften the emotional tone even more. According to what individuals were saying, the room seemed to have regained its rhythm once more, not entirely composed, but no longer shaken from the strain of conflict. Everyone felt as though the worst of the storm had passed when someone moved in their seat and someone else exhaled quietly. The air was filled with the warmth of realization, vulnerability, and human frailty instead of the cutting edge of conflict. Then followed what supporters continued to refer to as the most emotionally compelling aspect of all the purported information. Yandy looked directly at Kirk again, her voice lowered to almost a hush, and said something about valuing her peace above everything else. She reminded him that she puts a lot of effort into maintaining her composure, handling events gracefully, and avoiding needless drama. And when that tranquility gets disrupted, especially by someone who should understand her better, it hits deeper than most people realize. People swear. Her tone conveyed no fury now, simply exhausted fact. The fact, according to rumor, seemed to settle on Kirk like a dull agony. He didn't dispute, didn't respond angrily, and didn't attempt to change the subject. With his eyes slightly dropped, he merely nodded once again, seemingly acknowledging that he had something to think about in light of everything that had transpired. This gentleness in his reaction made the room change into a peaceful understanding. It wasn't a reconciliation. It wasn't resolution. However, it was sufficient to relieve the emotional strain. Spectators allegedly exchanged discreet glances, understanding that the scene had moved from confrontation to reflection. Respecting the emotional space the two had created, some leaned back while others glanced down. The room no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a place where two powerful personalities had just walked through something raw and unvarnished. The tension subsided as the encounter went on, becoming more subdued and profoundly human rather than frigid or warm. And that's what people are constantly discussing on the internet. The way everything in the air moved from wrath to honesty, from passion to understanding. It wasn't dramatic. Towards the end, it was genuine, unprocessed, thoughtful, then according to the various reports flowing online. The room sat in that silent, weighty stillness, absorbing every emotion that had risen and rested between them. One thing is certain from the way fans are responding online to everything that has been going around on this purported moment. There are still more questions than answers. Nobody is aware of the facts, the extent to which these allegations accurately depict what transpired, or the nature of the discussions that may take place behind closed doors. However, everyone is in agreement that the emotional impact of these rumors has left them all in disbelief. A wave of conjecture has been sparked by the tension, the silence, the unvarnished honesty, the misinterpreted intentions, the heavy breathing, and the surprising gentleness at the conclusion. It isn't going to stop anytime soon. And that's precisely what makes the whole thing so compelling. Everyone is reminded of how difficult these relationships can be, particularly when feelings are intense and miscommunications are severe. The way fans are reacting reveals just how invested people are in these personalities, their tailies, and the invisible aspects of their interactions. The conversation surrounding these circulating details has already taken on a life of its own, regardless of whether any of them are true or overstated. And it's up to you now. What are your thoughts on all that has been posted online? Do you think these rumors are plausible, or do you think they are exaggerated? Do you believe that miscommunications like this occur more frequently than people realize behind the scenes? And what sort of impact do you believe a moment like this could have on the circle moving forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've been paying careful attention to this story. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what portions surprised you the most, and let me know what you believe might truly be going on here. Additionally, make sure you like this video, press the subscribe button, and enable notifications so you don't miss anything. If you want more updates, breakdowns, and in-depth analyses of the drama, here, Your opinion matters, and I'm eager to hear it.